Your inner voice is not commentary, it's a groove. And every time it runs, that groove gets a little bit deeper, which means reality is not just hearing what you say, it is responding to what you have repeated thousands of times without noticing. Now, there's something interesting that happens when people discover manifestation. They start watching their thoughts, they start noticing what they are thinking. They do affirmations, they journal, they visualize, and some of them start to get results. But there is a layer beneath the thoughts that most teachers never address, and it's louder than any affirmation that you will ever say. It is the voice that runs in the background every single day, the one that comments on what just happened, the one that predicts what is about to go wrong, the one that tells you what is possible for someone like you. And not the thoughts that you choose, they are the ones that just run. There are people who spend years doing every manifestation practice correctly and still don't understand why the results, they just plateau. They hold the vision, they work on their state, but in the background, the voice is still running the old program. And that voice is doing more creating than everything else combined. My name is Dejorn Goldsmith, and this is Manifestation Mechanics. I've spent over 20 years studying how consciousness shapes reality using ancient Vedic texts and modern neuroscience. And I want to be clear, what I'm about to show you is not some kind of positive thinking. It's about understanding a mechanism. Because when you understand the mechanism, you don't need discipline. You don't need to force anything. You just need to understand what is actually happening. Let me give you two separate ideas. The first one you may already know from this channel, that your brain is a prediction machine. Before any moment arrives, your nervous system has already run a model of what's about to happen based on every moment that came before it. It doesn't wait for evidence, it predicts, and then it filters reality through that prediction. Now, the second idea, in ancient Vedic philosophy, there is a concept that's called samskara. A samskara is an impression carved into consciousness through repetition. The more a pattern repeats, the deeper the groove becomes. And the deeper the groove, the more automatically that pattern fires. Two separate ideas. I will let you sit with where they overlap. Now, most people, when they first encounter this teaching, they go straight to monitoring every thought that they have. They catch a negative thought and then they try to replace it. And that works for about 45 minutes because they're working at the surface level. The self-talk is not the root. The self-talk is the symptom. It's the samskara speaking out loud. It's the prediction machine narrating what it already believes is true. So when someone says in their head, this is never going to work out for me, that's not a thought that they chose. That is a groove that has been carved so many times that it just fires automatically. And every time it fires, it deepens. And here's the part that changes everything. Your nervous system does not distinguish between something that has happened and something that you narrated. They both leave an impression. Both deepen the groove, which means the running commentary, the background voice is not just reflecting your reality, it's creating it. I spent decades studying these teachings before I truly understood this distinction. I could sit in meditation and I could hold a state of coherence. I could do the practices, but the moment that I stood up and I moved through my day, the background voice was still running the old program, talking about what I did not have, commenting on what was not working, predicting what was about to go wrong. And because the nervous system, it doesn't distinguish between narration and events, those predictions were being stamped into consciousness as deeply as any experience that I had actually lived. The practices were building one identity, and then the background voice was dismantling it 12 hours a day. Now, this is not about positivity. There are people who hear something like this and immediately start trying to force cheerful self-talk, trying to police every word that their inner voice produces, and they will exhaust themselves within a week because they are fighting the symptom. They're not working with the mechanism. What actually changes the background voice is not replacing it. It's understanding what it is made of. Every reoccurring pattern in your self-talk is a groove. It's a samskara carved by repetition. And grooves, they don't respond to force. They respond to frequency. A new groove that's carved repeatedly, then that begins to run more automatically than the old one. And this is why the ancient teachers, they were just so specific about what you dwell in. Like, not what you occasionally think, not what you affirm for 10 minutes in the morning, but what you dwell in. The state that you return to, the identity you come back to between the practices, in the ordinary moments, in the gaps. The background voice is what fills those gaps. And whoever is speaking in those gaps is the one that's doing the creating. Now, before I name these patterns, I want you to stay with me for just 60 more seconds, because once you hear them named out loud, you'll not be able to unhear them. And that is where everything starts to shift. There are specific patterns the background voice runs that are really worth naming, because the moment you name a pattern, its automatic hold over you, it begins to loosen. So there's the prediction pattern. Sounds like this. This is not going to work out for me. This is going to go wrong. Then there's the qualifier pattern. Things are good, but I'm making progress, but something feels different, but. And then there's the timing pattern. When I have more money, I will. When I am in a relationship, I will. When things settle down, I will. Now, each one of these is not a thought. It's a prediction that's being stamped into the nervous system every time it runs. And the interesting thing about naming these patterns out loud is that it changes your relationship to them. Before you name them, they just run invisibly. They feel like reality. And after you name them, there's like this moment of space, a gap between the pattern and the response to it. And that gap is where the new groove can begin to form. Now, the practical application of this is not complicated, but it is specific. The question is not, what do I want to say instead? The question is, who is speaking? When the background voice runs the prediction pattern, it is not speaking as the version of you who already has what you are manifesting. It is speaking as the version of you who is still waiting for it. And the nervous system responds to identity, not to content. It's not listening to the words. It's reading from the state from which the words come. And this is why affirmations often fail. You can say the words of the new identity while the nervous system is still running the old identity. The words are the surface. The state of being is the signal. The shift is not in what you say. It is learning to speak from the identity of the version of you who has already resolved this. Not forcing it, not performing it. Practice returning to it in the ordinary moments, in the gaps, in the background. And start small. When you notice the background voice running a pattern, don't fight it. Just ask one question. Is that the voice of who I am becoming or who I used to be? Here's what that actually sounds like in practice. The old voice says, this always falls apart. Right when it starts working, it just goes wrong. You notice it. Don't argue with it. You just ask, is that who I am becoming or who I used to be? And then something shifts. It's not dramatically, not immediately, but there is a gap. There's a moment of space where there wasn't before. And in that gap, a different voice can begin. It's not forced. It's not performed. Just possible. This is the new groove, just starting to form. And most people who start applying this, they start to notice something within 2 or 3 weeks. And the background voice, it doesn't just disappear, but its automatic authority, it begins to fade. There is more space, more choice. There's more moments where the voice that speaks is the one that they have been choosing instead, rather than just letting that other voice simply run. And as that shift settles in, something else tends to happen. Results start to move, not dramatically at first, but in small, unexpected ways. Coincidences, doors opening that were not there before. And then, for most people, something strange occurs. The moment that things start working, the background voice, it changes its strategy. It doesn't stay silent. It starts running a different program. And that's where most manifestations stall. Not at the beginning, at the moment of first evidence. And that's what the next video is about, because understanding why momentum stops after it starts is the piece that most people never get. And without it, every time you build something, you will find yourself right back at the beginning, wondering what went wrong. Now, if you want to understand the full mechanics, the earlier videos on this channel, they build the foundation, and each one adds a layer. This one is the layer that holds everything else together. My name is Dejorn Goldsmith. This is Manifestation Mechanics. The voice running in the background is not just commentary. It's the most consistent signal that you are broadcasting. And reality has been listening the whole time. I'll see you in the next video.